Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the New Jersey Bankruptcy Podcast, powered by Straffi and Straffi. I am your host, Daniel Straffi Jr. Today, we welcome mortgage banker Matt Toria, who works at PRMI, Primary Residential Mortgage. Matt, how you doing today?
I'm excellent, Dan. How about you?
Doing well. Thanks so much for coming on, giving us some of your time. We appreciate that, especially in the podcast format. Usually our conversations are a little bit different, but today we're going to help enlighten people and break some myths as far as financing is concerned in relation to bankruptcy. Let's jump right into the biggest myth, Matt, which is a lot of clients think that you can't buy a house for a minimum of a decade. I always tell clients 2 years to rebuild credit. As far as after a bankruptcy is filed, give us an idea of what the real timeline looks like.
Well, it could be anywhere from 3 months to 4 years, depending on which type of program that you're looking to do. FHA is 2 years, conventional is 4 years, and we have what we call non-QM, which is a lot of the types of loans that help your clients out. As little as 3 months for some of the lenders there.
Wow. Does it really depend on the lender at the end of the day, or does it depend on the qualifications that you're seeing from clientele?
It depends on the criteria of the people, because everybody's details kind of fits into different boxes, and then you just have to figure out which box fits where.
Is that where your expertise comes into play, your experience? Tell me how that goes.
Yeah, I like to think of myself as a creative financial specialist. So we look at a couple of different things. We look at credit. We look at the bankruptcy itself. Was it a Chapter 7? Was it a 13? Some other things that might be in there too. Everybody really is different. And a lot of people don't understand that there's a lot of different options out there for people. So it's not just one box fits all.
Okay. Well, that's good to know for people, and I always try to gear them towards the professionals in order to make those determinations, but clearly it's not cookie cutter in any respect. And from your side of the desk, what is the biggest difference between someone who has filed a Chapter 7 versus when someone's been in a Chapter 13 when it comes to acquiring a mortgage or refinance?
So Chapter 7, obviously, you're done, you move forward, everything's wiped out. With a Chapter 13, now you're going to go into trustee payments. What's going to be probably the most important for people like that are in 13s, did you make all of your payments on time? And with these non-QM lenders, they're not as particular as some of the other ones. But we look to try and get people out of the 13, because if they're in a 13 and they want to buy a house or do a refinance, now you have to go back to the trustee to get the trustees okay. If we're just going to get them out of it and do a refinance, I call it a Chapter 13 buyout refi, then nobody has to go to the trustee.
In other words, you strategize in anticipation of an event, that being a buyout or refinance, and an attorney, such as in my position, we might strategically look to dismiss the bankruptcy in anticipation of that. Is that what you're talking about? Or is it more about the approvals one needs within a Chapter 13 context?
I prefer to get them out of the 13 if we can, because it's easier for everybody that way. If we do a Chapter 13 buyout refi, we get rid of the Chapter 13 and then we can come back in later. You can't do a cash out refinance with a Chapter 13. That's why we need to get people out of it. So there's a little bit more behind all of it. Credit is very important for people. We want to look at all of these different things and figure out exactly what's the best thing. Like, we have somebody right now, turned out that she was late on 3 of her payments to her trustee. They don't like that. So we have to wait 3 more months and then come back in and then do it at that point. When you have the 13, you're looking at 12 months of on-time payment history to trustee. Something happens, which it can. Now that kind of puts a little kink in the system.
Okay. And from a lender's perspective, from what you've found as far as what qualifies as a late payment, is it missing a month of time? Is it past the 15th of the month? Is there any qualification to that?
30 days. It's the same when you're a credit card. It's the same with a mortgage payment. If you pay it on the 16th, it's not late. It's only late when it's 30 days. A lot of people don't understand that sometimes, but you want to make sure that you get it in that month. Once it goes past the 30th day, now it's late.
Okay, that's good to know. How much is the why behind the bankruptcy? There's a myriad of different reasons as far as why people end up having to file for bankruptcy. How much of the why matters to lenders, and how do you guide someone through presenting an explanation to a lender in that circumstance where they might require it?
The why is somewhat important, whether it was a divorce, COVID, or something happened, because if you're going with a traditional loan, they're going to want to have an explanation letter. But what they're really looking for, how is it not going to happen again? So normally when they have an explanation letter, they want to know what happened and how is it rectified? Is it going to happen again? And one of the other things that's super important is the after. If you have a bankruptcy and then you have late payments after that, that's a big red flag for people. They're not so much as to what happened to cause it. They're more like, hey, did you fix it afterwards? Because if you start having lates on there, you look like you could wind up doing it again.
And that's interesting that you say that, because often when I speak with my clients, we look at the bankruptcy as like a capture of time because of everything that we're presenting to the court as far as assets, liabilities. Whatever happened in the past, it stops right there as far as the filing date. So what you're really emphasizing is start showing it after the bankruptcy has been filed, no matter which circumstance, and that's going to help to build things for them.
Just like establishing new credit. Most of the time, all of their credit is closed due to the bankruptcy. Open up 2 secured credit cards at that point and make sure that you're paying them, using them wisely, 30% usage, and you pay them on time because they look at the histories. If you have lates after that, that's a tough one.
When you say 30% usage, are you referring to the amount of credit that the person has available to them? So if they have $1,000 credit limit, use up to about $300 or so?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if it's less than that, is that helpful, or should someone strive to be in that area?
No, the 30%, once you start going over that, like 50%, now it starts hitting your credit score and bringing your credit score down. So it's really just to try and help balance out or give them, not ding them on the credit, on the scores.
Understood. As far as the type of debt that folks encounter, is there a difference in how a lender would view medical debt versus credit card debt in a bankruptcy? And what's changing now that, as far as I understand, medical debt is being removed from credit reports?
Not yet. They've talked about it. It's supposed to be happening. Another thing they've also been talking about, which they also have not implemented yet, is trending data. So normally we could have somebody pay down their credit cards and get what we call a rescore. And all of a sudden, hey, boom, you got 30 points right there. Now they're looking at 12-month or 24-month averages or history. That's trending data. We haven't seen anything yet with the medical. Although it would be great, we don't factor medical into when we're looking at somebody's collection accounts. Medical is actually not part of that.
Okay. Is there a reason for that overall?
Anything over, and there's a difference between a charge-off and a collection. We could go into credit all day long, but when we're looking at mortgages with collection accounts, they collectively don't want to see more than $2,000 in collection account. Medical debt is excluded because that's medical.
So it's more about their usage as opposed to some type of debt that is forced upon them due to some type of medical injury or otherwise.
And collection accounts, the funny thing is most people have them and they don't realize it. And they're usually from cable companies because they didn't return a cable box, or they're from a cell phone because they wound up switching cell phone carriers, but the carrier never paid off the bill, or they have co-pays from medical, like they were on workman's comp. Those are some of the biggest collection accounts that I see for people that they just don't even realize they have.
And I would imagine that following up on that is more tedious than insurmountable. Is that a fair statement as far as giving clients an opportunity to take care of it?
I would agree with that, yes.
Okay. Yeah, those things add up. You don't even know it.
Well, you're like the cleanup guy. So when they're doing all these things, you got to look at the full credit report and make sure, because I've seen so many times where people did bankruptcies and the bankruptcy attorney wound up missing a bunch of them and never put them actually into the bankruptcy or got them taken care of with a credit company or something like that. And a lot of people don't realize that they can actually call and have them deleted when they're paying them. They just never ask because they just don't know.
It takes a concerted effort to make sure that all creditors are on there. Part of our services is we pull a credit report and a judgment search for folks. That's as much as I can know about their situation. But they also have to think of anyone and everyone that may be out there, go through old shoe boxes of bills to just get them down, because it can be quite a tedious process for them.
One of the easiest things to do is just to do a soft pull, because we do tri-merge, we see everything. And then at that point, start running cleanup from there.
When someone's in that waiting period after a bankruptcy, what's your playbook? What's your approach as far as coaching people to rebuild their credit? And what have you found works overall in helping them get to where you can be of assistance?
So exactly what I just said before, right? Opening up 2 secured credit cards and making sure that everything else is paid on time. And then also making sure any of the cleanup items get addressed. So this way, because people don't realize credit can be fixed. Time heals all wounds, but you also have to put a little work into it. I've seen people with bankruptcies 2 years later and had 740 FICO scores. A lot of times people get so discouraged or distraught, they give up And it's all fixable if you put some work into it, and it will get better.
It's a matter of doing the work and being proactive with it. Like you said, so many bills just get pilled up because ignorance can sometimes be a temporary bliss for folks when they're dealing with that kind of stress of financial disrepair.
Best thing is just take the bull by the horns, face it, deal with it, fix it, and then just keep moving forward for a better life.
Yeah, and it sounds like you have a strategy to try to get them on track in every case, but every case is different, as you mentioned before. When it comes to FHA or VA loans, are those loans more common after a bankruptcy, or are they better options, or does that not really factor in?
So VA and FHA both have 2-year waiting periods after a bankruptcy. Fannie and Freddie conventional has a 4-year waiting period. FHA tends to be the more favorable route. If somebody has more money, then we can go with one of the non-QM lenders that will do a loan right, 3 months out of bankruptcy with a 30% down payment. Not everybody has that. The FHA tends to be the better way to go, provided that they didn't have any derogatories after that.
And when you say non-QM, just for our listening audience, what do you mean by that?
They're outside of Fannie, Freddie, and FHA. They're outside of the government entities. They're private lenders, and they do a wide array of different types of things. They do the no income loans. They'll do Chapter 13 refinance loans. Like, we had somebody who was one of your clients that he wound up having some interesting difficulties with his mortgage and things like that. His wife wasn't on the mortgage that was foreclosed on, and we wound up doing a loan under her because she had great credit. They had the 20% down payment. She didn't work, but we didn't need to because this was one of the non-QM loans, as we call it. So we actually closed on them a few months ago. We're going to fix his credit up, come back in and do a regular refinance to drop the interest rate on it for him. There's a strategy there. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 loans.
And it may take 2 or 3 years to effectuate, but at least you have the plan for them.
They're paying a mortgage rather than a rent. Any day of the week, I don't care if the interest rate is 2% higher and the fees are higher. I'd rather pay a mortgage than a rent any day of the week because it's mine and I get the tax deduction for the interest.
Yeah, how much of the tax deduction do you play into folks when, they're making those sorts of determinations?
Well, usually if you're around a 7% interest rate, you're really somewhere around 5.5, 5.75, actually what you pay after taxes. Even if you're at a 9, you're still probably somewhere in the 8% range. But I'd rather pay 8% than 100% on rent because 0% of that goes to any benefit for yourself or your family. And you're not building any equity either. Because if you do it now, 2 years from now, when you come back in a refinance, your house is going to be worth 10 to 20% more, and you're still paying a mortgage and getting your interest deduction.
Right. How does a current rent payment compare to a current mortgage payment as far as effect on credit is concerned? Or how do you look at it?
We factor more about a debt to income ratio depending on the type of program. If you're in a Chapter 13, and you're renting, you have to go to the trustee if you want to buy, and it has to be within 10% of what your rent payment is now because they worry about a payment shock. So with the other types of programs, the non-QM programs, they don't look at that. They don't really care.
And speaking of one of those types, as far as our veterans that listen to the program, what do you see with VA loans? Are they more available than FHA or other ones to our veterans?
Veterans could be, if they tend to be more accommodating. If there were certain circumstances that we can have substantiated, like a medical condition or something like that, then there are more possibilities with a VA loan. Just like anybody, you go through this. The best thing to do is to get yourself on the right track to get fixed up. This way you look better that you're making an effort, that it was a one-time thing. That's what they're concerned with. Like, is this going to be a repeat offender? Are they going to be coming back every 2 or 3 years? Because that's not good for them for lending.
Now, in those non-QM scenarios where you're trying to expedite the process, someone needs something sooner than 2 years, aside from what you just indicated as far as that post-bankruptcy history, is there anything else that you're looking for clients to bring to the table to try to get them done?
If we're talking about a refinance, it's going to be trustee payment on time, mortgage payment on time. Because the other problem is that once you start a bankruptcy, your mortgage is no longer being reported to the credit bureaus.
Right. No attorney is going to have a client reaffirm a mortgage just for that purpose. That's bad practice.
So now when I see a credit report, I immediately know, all right, bankruptcy, no mortgage history because it stopped 3 years ago. So now I have to go and ask them, hey, have you been on time for the last 12 months? Because if you're not, that's going to be a problem. So we need to work around that. So we had somebody who had a whole bunch of lates. He was actually, his wife was the divorcee, and we needed to refinance her off the mortgage. He had a bankruptcy a while back, and a bunch of mortgage lates. So FHA was excluded. So we had to get a solid 12-month history. So all of his lates, he had 2 at the end. We just had to get beyond those, and then we wound up doing a refinance. That one was a 6-month process.
Gotcha. So after you had found out about those 2 lates, you set a course for 6 months in order to get you where it needed to be?
Yeah. Oh, and it got better because he actually had a car that was totaled. And a lot of people forget about something called gap insurance.
Sure.
So he wound up having a car totaled. There was a balance left on the car because they only pay what it's worth. And he never made a payment on it. It wound up hitting his credit in the process and dropped him from a 620 to a 550. So then we had to fix the credit.
So you always have to keep your creative hat on. And certainly you've helped a lot of my clients out with that creativity. What is it about your background, would you say, that excites you about the business, that makes you the type of person that can work with people who need that sort of listening ear and creativity in order to get something done for them?
I used to be a mechanic. So I used to fix construction equipment on the job sites. So I didn't have anybody else around me. I just had to do it. I didn't have a choice.
You always had to figure it out.
Yes. And there was just nothing else that I could do. I would just figure stuff out. But the other part of it too is that I like a challenge and I'm empathetic because these people went through a rough patch. They had stuff that happened, whether it was a family member dying or a divorce. So for me, I enjoy trying to figure out how to find an option for somebody. Some people just want quick and easy. Me, I'm not that type. I like figuring out how to make stuff work for people.
Well, strategy and empathy will get you a long way, especially in our line of business. So we certainly appreciate your listening ear. And in light of the clients you've assisted, both from me and in general, that have performed the Chapter 13 buyout refinance, what has that process been like as far as what you can relay for a potential client that might experience that down the road?
The nice thing about it is that we get rid of the bankruptcy, right? So after 12 months of on-time trustee payments, we do a refinance where we roll the balance of the trustee payments into a new loan and put them together and we get rid of it. So now they're done. In 2 years, they can come back in and actually do FHA financing. In 4 years, they can come back in and do conventional financing. They don't have to wait the full 5 years of trustee payments. Like we get them back straight now. And we can even come back in 3 months and do a cash out refinance and give them some extra money if they need something else. If they have extra debt that they want to get rid of, or they want to put some money back into a retirement fund or something like that, or do some work on the house or buy a new car. But once you're out of the bankruptcy, you're back to living again. Like you don't have to worry about this stuff. You get the monkey off your back.
And then, like you had indicated, if they stay current moving forward, all the options are open as far as getting to something perhaps more conventional down the road.
All they're doing is looking in the rear view at that point. The bankruptcy they had back when they did it.
Now, you're based in New Jersey. Is your company based anywhere else or just strictly New Jersey?
No, we're nationwide with the exception of New York. And we just have another client that they wound up actually moving down to South Carolina. And we're now doing a refinance on the home they bought down in South Carolina with that no income loan that I told you about.
Okay, so you have flexibility in light of the fact that you guys are nationwide to address the local laws and standards in one state versus another. You have those flexibilities. And is there anything here in New Jersey as far as state or local programs to assist homeowners or potential homeowners?
Well, the programs are going to be FHA, which is going to be 2 years past your bankruptcy. So there's nothing that's going to help somebody while they're in all of this. They're state-run programs that are agency-type programs.
Okay, so nothing out of the ordinary in that regard other than the normal that you kind of encounter.
But we do have down payment assistance programs that'll give somebody a down payment or money for closing costs and things like that.
Okay. When you close a client, whether it be handing them the keys to a new property, getting them the interest rate on a refinance, or getting cash out of it, do you stick with that client in any respect as far as managing this new set of financial realities for them? Or do you try to impose certain habits on them or stay in touch? What's the process once you actually get to the end with them?
So one of them who we just closed, he was a cash out refinance and it was a divorce buyout. So I sent him to my credit person. We got his credit all cleaned up. Now he's going to a financial advisor because he wound up getting some extra money in the house. And now I'm making sure that he gets other things in order too. Another one, he's going to a credit repair person. This way I can come back in a year or two and do a refinance for them. So I want to make sure that I'm their advisor, not just their mortgage guy.
Okay. And is a lot of that staying on top of interest rates to give them opportunities and things of that nature?
That'll be coming in the future. I think that
Fingers crossed.
we're looking at about 2 years, but right now it's more about getting them moving through from the non-QM program into an FHA loan, into a conventional loan, and things like that. So staying on top of them to keep the plan going, because sometimes it's a multi-step plan.
Okay. When it comes to interest rates presently, how would you define the present interest rate landscape? Obviously, we all knew that we were in a very favorable situation 4 or 5 years ago. How would you describe it presently?
Listen, the cost of living is high. Interest rates are high right now because we go off of the 10-year treasury. A lot of people think we run off of the Fed rate. They say the Fed lowered its rate. A lot of times rates will go up. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market. So what I tell people is get your house, get your equity, come back later, do a refinance when rates drop. But if you don't buy now, next year, that house is 10 to 20% higher than what it was today. So you're better off getting your house and shoring up your home, taking the equity and the property and the tax advantages that you get, and then refinancing later. Don't worry about your interest rate right now. Worry about what you're going to make on the house.
Those being the folks that may be looking to get into the market, they're renters presently. What do you say to the folks who have those low interest rates but need to figure something out as far as their cost of living is concerned? They have that 2.5 or 3.5 rate. The interest rate is close to double that presently, right?
Yes. My suggestion is that if you can keep your rate, great. If you need money, look at what you're going to wind up doing. So it's all about the monthly payment. If you're paying 30% interest on your credit cards, the cost of those kinds of debts can wind up getting you into a conversation with you. Live in your means. If you have an opportunity to refinance your house, don't worry about the interest rate. Worry about what your monthly savings is. If I can come in and save you $500 or $600 a month, even though your interest rate goes up, that's a win for you. Because now we made your life more manageable. We freed up debt or freed up money. On top of that, we've also turned a lot of that credit card debt into now tax deductible interest, because you cannot write off interest on credit cards or student loans or things like that.
Now, first off, thank you for all of your time here today, Matt. We appreciate it. But as we wrap things up, when someone is feeling hopeless about ever owning a home again, what do you say to them? How do you get them on track as far as having a positive mindset and turning that into action?
Well, first off is having a conversation with me. I always like to have an educating conversation. The other thing is that prices are going to keep going up. Rates are not always going to be high, right? It's cyclical. Are we going to see 2s or 3s again? I don't know. But you know what? We could see 5s. So rents are not going to go down. You're better off paying a mortgage than paying rent. It's about getting into the right mindset, because a lot of people are doom and gloom, and that doesn't help people. You know, you should buy a house. Maybe you start out smaller. Start with a condo and then build up from there. Then you can turn that condo into an investment property, into a rental. And these are some of the strategies that I go over with people, because like I drive an Acura TLX, right? My first car was a 1978 Chevy Chevette. My current car is far different than my first car. So some of it is setting the proper expectations for people, because your first house is not going to be your forever house. You live in a house that you had built. That's not your first home. Setting the right expectations and getting yourself in the right mindset. Forget what you see on HGTV and other shows about buying houses and international home buyers and all that. Get a place that's going to work for you. If you're paying a $2,500 a month rent, which is not cheap for some people, your mortgage payment will be somewhere around $3,000. That could be comfortable for you. You have to have the right expectations and look at things in the right way.
And I think overall what you're really getting across is that there's never an end to any of this. Bankruptcy is not an end all. If anything, it's a new beginning, a fresh start.
It's a bump in the road. And if you have the right people that can explain things and help you along the way, that's all that it is. Time heals all wounds. It's not forever. Get it over with. Be current on your mortgage. That's one thing I always tell people. If you do have a bankruptcy, reestablish new credit. Make sure that you're current with all your cards. Set them up on auto pay. This way you never ever, that's the one thing that screws people up the most. They miss card payments because they never actually scheduled them, or maybe they don't receive the bill. Well, that's not the creditor's problem. That's actually your problem. Their bill is irrelevant. Set up your auto pays.
I always tell folks, put your core on the card. Your core being your groceries, things that you need to spend on. Pay it off every month. Using that credit is going to help to rebuild things. Is that where you try to steer folks as well?
Yeah, and another great one too is use the seasons. If you have credit cards, like some people have 10, 20 cards, every season pull it out and use it. Because if you don't use it after 12 months, they are going to close your card on you, and closing cards will actually hurt your credit.
Right. Using it is important. It's kind of a catch-22, right? You don't want to overuse it.
Unfortunately, it's a necessary evil. Set up Netflix or your Amazon or something like that. Set it up on there so this way there's something on there all the time, or just use it for groceries or gas once a quarter. Pay it off in a couple of installments because they like to see the history. Paying everything off in one shot doesn't necessarily help you as much as paying it off in a couple, because the couple shows diligence. It shows that you can pay your bills on time, because a credit score is just a numerical representation of how well you pay your bills.
Right. Well, thanks again, Matt, for all of your time here, your expertise. How about giving us a plug as far as your business, what you're up to? This way our listeners know where to find you.
For anybody that is thinking about buying a house or refinancing or has gone through a bankruptcy, I'm always here to listen and help them. You can find me at mvictoria@primeres.com. My phone number is 908-296-8904. Or if you look on Facebook, you could find me at Match Your Mortgage Guy. That's the easiest way to find me.
Matt, great speaking with you. Thanks as always for your expertise and obviously all you do as far as helping out our clients. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Matt.